Damon Martin MMA fighting here with a manager to the stars and the man who helped get the deal done for one of the biggest fights of 2021. Tyron Woodley will take on Jake Paul August 28th. Welcome to the show today, Malki Kawa. Malki, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing great, sir. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I am absolutely fantastic, and I appreciate you doing this. Obviously, you're always working. You're always doing deals. Today, a big one got announced, and you got to be excited about this one. Tyron Woodley, Jake Paul. Kind of give me a sense, like, how long has this been in the works?
It's been in the works for a minute. We, Jake Paul's manager and I go way back from his days in the UFC. And, when Jake Paul beat Ben Askren, I had Frank Mir on that card at Triller. Excuse me. And when Jake beat Ben, the way he beat it, a lot of people thought, Ben threw the fight, and there's a lot of hype around it. And a lot of people actually gave Ben a chance, which I knew for a fact he didn't have. And I started talking to Nikisa, and I started telling him, I said, listen, bro, you need to give him a legit opponent at some point. You know what I mean? Kind of giving him like my wisdom of like how to manage somebody and all that, right? Like usually a guy who's 3-0 should take his time and get opponents at his level. But when you're making the type of money he's making and getting the type of attention he's getting, you can mess that up, right? Because if he keeps fighting the Ben Askren types, like to say he would have fought Dylan Dennis, which makes no sense, right? I feel like people would have just continued to think he was a joke and would have just stopped, right? But Tyron Woodley's like the perfect opponent, right? He's 0-0 as a boxer. He's a former UFC champion. He's a little older, but the guy's got dynamite in his hands. He's boxed his whole life. He's been training in boxing his whole life. I think there was a time, when Tyron was out in LA training with Freddie Roach for a while. So it's not like you're talking about somebody that doesn't know how to box. And so I talked to Nikisa. I said, bro, now's the time to make a match where, it's an even playing field with somebody who knows how to box. He may not be a pro boxer, but I mean, it didn't matter. To me, it was like the perfect opportunity. So,
yeah.
Nikisa, being, me and him having the relationship we had, I, told him what I thought it was. He, I think at first he didn't like the fight. And then as I guess Jake and them wanted it, but the whole thing with, Jalen Love and Tyron in the back and all that, I think they figured, this was the thing that made the most sense. I also think Jake Paul realizes himself that he needs, a good opponent to take that next step. And if he can beat Tyron, I think that, people got to really start paying attention to this guy.
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
real. I mean, I know we already are paying attention, but I'm talking about like really take him serious. For somebody who's 3-0 to go in there, and if he was to beat, Tyron, I think it's a completely different ballgame for him going forward.
Yeah. When Tyron finished out his UFC contract earlier this year, we knew he was going to have options. We knew there were going to be options. He could potentially go back to the UFC. Obviously, Bellator's out there, won championship, PFL. There's a lot of options for a guy like Tyron Woodley, especially with the credentials he had. But listen, he put it out there today. This is going to be the biggest purse of his career. Now, I know you worked a lot on Tyron's contracts in the UFC, and I'm sure he was happy with pay-per-view points, things he got in that contract. But how excited or how happy were you with this particular deal out of all the options that Tyron had to get this kind of a deal to go fight Jake Paul, Showtime pay-per-view? Sounds like he's getting paid well.
Oh, yeah, he's getting paid really well. It's one of the best deals I've ever done, Damon, for a guy in his situation. It was a tremendous deal. He's getting a large base number. He's getting a cut of the pay-per-view globally. He's participating in a lot of different things, and he should walk away with, a multi-million-dollar payday. You know what I mean? And I don't mean like his base guarantee is in the millions already, but add on all the other extra stuff. It's a really nice payday. And so, I'm proud of the work we do. I've always been proud of the work of everything we've done, because everything we did was always with our clients' best interest. And we've always fought for them to get what, we think they deserve. Sometimes we hit a home run. Sometimes, you hit a double or a triple. But in this case, you know what I mean? I worked with Nikisa. I worked with Steven Espinosa. I gave him what I was looking for. We worked back and forth for, a good amount of time. Shit got ugly sometimes. Other times it was pleasant. And we just got to a point where we felt comfortable with it. And, Jake is probably making the lion's share of the money, which he is. But nonetheless, Tyron's, this is a real good day for him.
Yeah, you've obviously negotiated a lot of big deals during your career. We talked last year when you did the deal for Paige Van Zandt signing with BKFC. We talked about what a big deal that was. So we know when you're talking about millions of dollars, it's never going to be offer accepted, sign the contract. We know there's going to be negotiation, but would you say dealing with Showtime and dealing with Jake's manager, was this an easier negotiation or was it a harder negotiation?
No, it's just what the difference is that I think first off, number one, it's a different sport, different group of guys, different setting. There's different things, different parameters. Excuse me, that you're able to let me say this: the UFC has this, like, everybody gets mad at the UFC because they fight hard when it's time to negotiate, right? I don't find that that's something wrong that they do. What I find wrong in our sport is that the managers don't fight back hard to get what their clients deserve to get. Does that make sense? And so when you hear a story of Dustin Poirier fighting extremely hard to get his fight against Conor, and him having to go through God knows what to get to where he got to, right? You look at it and you say, oh, that's effed up. No, I look at it like, yo, Dustin, good for you. You stood your ground. You worked your ass off. You got what you're supposed to get. Kudos to you and your team. You follow where I'm coming from? So a lot of times people look at it from the wrong perspective. Nothing in this world is given to you. In the NFL, listen, I'm in the middle of negotiating Darius Leonard's contract for the Colts. It started high because that's what the market is, but it's not at the number it should be. You think that these guys for an extra $1 million are making it that easy for me? At all. It's not been easy at all. So what I'm saying is that this was worse in some ways, and it was easier in others. You follow where I'm coming from? So a negotiation is a negotiation. We fought hard. I think that for the numbers he got paid, I hit a grand slam. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people, and yes, he definitely got paid in his base guarantee way more than he ever did in the UFC, whether as a champion or non-champion. That's a fact. Yes.
Yeah. Now I saw Tyron on his Instagram live today. I've known Tyron for a lot of years. I like Tyron very much. I'm not gonna listen, what he went through in his last couple of UFC fights, and especially with his last one coming out there guns blazing, getting the fight of the night. I still feel like Tyron's got plenty of fight left in him. There's absolutely no shame whatsoever losing to guys like Kamaru Usman or Gilbert Burns, things he did. So again, no shame in that whatsoever. But he sounded truly fired up today. And I know he said that Andre Ward even reached out already to say maybe they'll work together. Obviously, he's got his head coach, already working with him. What do you expect out of Tyron Woodley in this boxing match? Because hearing him today, and again, it's just talk, but he sounded legitimately fired up to go out there and take off Jake Paul's head.
Well, I think you got to think of it from this perspective, right? If you're a guy like Tyron Woodley and you win 5 championship fights in a row, right? And then go to lose, 4 of them? What did he lose? 5? I'm sorry. He loses the Kamaru fight. Then he loses to Gilbert. Then he loses to Colby, which in itself was a major blow to him from an ego, pride, everything, career, legacy thing, right? To the Vicente fight, I thought was different. But you think about it, right? This guy lost 4 straight fights. And now you get an opportunity to beat a guy that collectively boxing and MMA probably don't like, right? He's probably, Mr. Enemy number 1 to every combat sports fan and anybody that believes in the martial arts way, right? So it's like I told Tyron, you're getting paid a lot of money because this is a legacy fight. Do you want your legacy to end with him beating you? Or do you want to end your legacy with you beating him, cashing out big and riding off either into the sunset or onto the next fight, whatever it is you want to do? And he was like, no, you're right. And he looked at me and he was like, this is big, huh? And I said, bro, I don't think you understand. This will be the biggest fight you've ever been in your life. Okay. From the media standpoint, all that, not necessarily from what's at stake, because I think winning the UFC belt obviously was the biggest moment and the biggest fight that he had. But from a media, I mean, listen, he's been trending number 1 on Twitter for the last 2 days. Things like that didn't happen before, right? So this is a major legacy fight. Think about this. He lost these 4 fights. If Tyron goes in and wins, okay, Jake Paul's team negotiated an automatic rematch clause. That's how much, I'm saying? This is a scary fight for them. If we win this fight, if Jake Paul wants it, then we have to run it back with him, right? Can you imagine if Tyron Woodley has lost his last 4 fights, comes in, demolishes this guy. Or let's say it's a really good fight. Tyron pulls it out, goes and does another massive rematch, gets paid even more money for the rematch, right? And let's say beat him twice in a row, and then decided to hang the gloves up forever. I think that his you know what I mean? Like his legacy, although it's already cemented, but you understand it just takes it to another level. And that's why we got paid what we got paid. And I think that for Tyron, it also fires him up because it's something completely different. It gives him something new to train for. And I think it's an opportunity to erase the last 4 fights. And that's kind of what, we set out to do, doing this deal.
Yeah, that's interesting. Automatic rematch clause in there. Obviously, Jake Paul's team knows this is dangerous. And I mean, like I said, you set it up for the payday, man. If he does lose, everything doesn't go his way on August 28th. Listen, it's even bigger fight for the rematch. We know how that goes. You know how that goes.
Dude, listen to me. I was telling some friends of mine, I was like, listen, best case scenario here for Tyron, it's a hell of a fight. It's a barn burner, right? He doesn't necessarily knock him out in the first round. But let's just say it's a hell of a fight, and then this thing is legit, right? It's a really good fight. And let's say some people think Jake wins, and some people think Tyron wins, but the judges give it to Tyron, right? The rematch would be freaking through the roof. You follow where I'm coming from? But if Tyron goes out there and gets knocked out like Ben, I think then at that point, Jake Paul becomes one of the biggest stars in combat sports across all platforms, period. You know what I mean? The only guy that'd be bigger than him might be Conor McGregor and Floyd, let's say. You know what I mean? But outside of those 2 guys, I don't know anybody else that Jake Paul would not overshadow. I mean, he already does as it is now, but if you beat a Tyron Woodley the way you beat a Ben Askren, forget about it. I think the sky's the limit for that kid.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong. I've said this since the beginning with Jake Paul. There's nothing wrong with making money. There's certainly nothing wrong with guys making money to fight him. Listen, I'm not going to fault Ben Askren. He did get knocked out, but hey, he got paid. Good for him. And for Tyron, like I said, maybe he goes on a
Damon, Ben Askren didn't get paid. Ben Askren made a few $100,000. I think when they reported $500,000 or something like that, he didn't get paid. He didn't take the shit serious. He didn't get paid. Tyron's getting paid. You know what I mean? Like we got to start really calling getting paid what calling getting paid is. You know what I mean? Getting paid $500,000 to fight a guy in a fight that does, whatever the amount of pay-per-views that it did, and you're the main event, and to get knocked out that way, he didn't get paid. You know what I mean? Tyron got paid. You know what I mean? When you got a couple extra zeros at the end of your you know what I'm saying, your base, you're getting paid. You know what I mean? When you're getting pay-per-view, you're getting paid. Ben didn't get that. Ben didn't get paid. Tyron's getting paid. So I don't fault him either. I understand that he went out there, he made some money. Good for him. You know what I mean? Again, you're fighting a Jake Paul, a guy who's not been boxing for a long time. You know what I mean? You're an MMA champion. You've won, titles in different organizations. God bless you. Go out there and do it, but don't call it getting paid. Tyron got paid. Big difference. You know what I mean? And it's still, again, I think even with Jake Paul's first 3 fights, I think he's been brought up the right way. If you look at any boxer that you respect, I don't care who you mention, Floyd Mayweather, Mike Tyson, Sugar Ray, this guy, that guy. Their first 10, 15 fights were all bums. We're all nobodies. You follow me?
Absolutely.
Jake Paul is just a big star that now has turned into a bigger star, right? And has found the path in boxing. I know the kid works really hard. I know that the kid has legit people around him training him. And I know he really wants it. That's one thing he does have. Youth, the ability, all that stuff. And he's got legit people around him. But Tyron Woodley is a different animal. And I think this is where the hype train stops. And that for me is what, I set out to do. You know what I mean? Is, hey, he needs a fight. It's a real risky fight. If you're man enough to take it, take it. If you're not, let's keep on. I don't know if you noticed, I've been angling for it for the last 2 months. Everybody kept on mentioning everybody else but Tyron. I mean, Jake Paul would call out every guy under contract at the UFC. You know what I mean? And it didn't make sense to me. And I kept on and on and on. But I mean, I knew that we were going to get the fight the whole time. You know what I mean? I just let them do what they were doing, but we were getting the fight the whole time.
Yeah, well, this is the first time, we got to be honest, this is the first time Jake's fighting a legitimate threat. I mean, no offense to Ben Askren, Nate Robinson, whoever else, but Tyron Woodley, we know, is legit. He was a UFC champion, but he's also the first guy he's ever faced with true legit one-punch knockout power. If Tyron connects with his right hand on Jake Paul's chin, Jake Paul will be waking up looking at the lights, or maybe waking up looking at the mat, because that's the kind of power Tyron Woodley possesses. And that's legit. That's the first legit threat he's faced in his career.
Oh, 100%. You know, the other thing, too, I like about this fight is that it's at 190, which both guys walk around 195 to 200 pounds. And so now Tyron will be 190. He'll be 190. There won't be, I'm hoping there'll be no gas issues. It's just, to me, Damon, when you look at it, you got to think of it this way. You know what I mean? Any other pro boxer, even if he's a legit guy, one day he's going to be a world champion. At 3-0, no manager in their right mind will let him fight Tyron Woodley today. No one. None of them. And that's what happens in boxing. The first 15, 20 fights are all cans and bums and guys that the guy should easily beat. Because you know how it is. If you lose a fight, it's almost impossible to get a title fight. And it becomes real hard to be a mainstream guy in boxing for whatever reason. So I think that, I give a lot of props to Jake and his team for taking this fight. I don't know if I was in the same position, if I'd have done the same. But I think that, like I said, I pitched them on it. They took it. And so now we'll see what happens. Hopefully Jake doesn't pull out, I'm still not convinced he'll actually do it. But until, he proves me otherwise, I got to, take my hat off to him and say, hey, let's see what happens now. But this is a very evenly matched fight. I don't care what anybody says. You have a boxer who's been boxing for 2 years. You have an MMA champion who's boxed his whole life, just hasn't actually done it in the ring. You follow me? He never boxed professionally, but he's boxed. He's trained in boxing. So we don't have a guy like a Ben Askren who's known for his wrestling only, if that makes sense, right? And so I look at Tyron and I see a guy who's a wrestler, yes, and an MMA champion, yes, but he also has hands like you just stated. So I think that's where the difference in this fight really is that now you're fighting with somebody who's not just been training for the last year, somebody who's been, a well-conditioned athlete who's trained for a while, that's going to take this super serious, probably more serious than he ever has any of the last few fights. And he's going to come out and put on a show. And I'm excited for him to do so.
Absolutely. I know they haven't announced the location for this yet, but since it's in August, can I imagine the talks are going to be with a full crowd? With an audience. Obviously everything's opening back up again everywhere at this point. Can I imagine this is going to be, wherever they do it, it's going to be with a big crowd in attendance as well?
100%. 100%. I know that there was rumors that this would happen maybe in a Houston, maybe somewhere in Florida, you know what I mean? Something like that, potentially a Vegas. I don't know, you know what I mean, yet, but they've dropped a couple different cities to me. I told them, listen, guys, I don't care. You know what I mean? Realistically, we're going to be ready regardless, wherever you guys want to put it. Just, I'm hoping it's a city that's, easy, accessible. It's, cool and going to be a good time for the fans and for the fighters themselves as well.
Absolutely. Malki, before I get you out of here, a couple other housekeeping items I want to hit you on real quick. I noticed on your Twitter today, obviously you're always looking for new prospects. You just signed a new prospect today. I want you to get a chance to talk about her because I looked her up. I saw her on your Instagram. Tell us about your new signing today.
You like that one, huh?
I did. I pay attention. I'm always paying attention.
Dude, you know what's interesting about her, which I really liked about her? She comes in and she says to me, hey, you know that I graduated from the Naval Academy, right? And so I'm sitting here thinking that she went and joined the Navy and graduated through a program that the Naval Academy had, right? Like the Navy, not the Naval Academy. And she's like, yeah, that's to get in there, it's harder to get into there than it is to Harvard or one of these other places, right? Like Yale and all this other stuff. And I go, oh, you mean the Naval Academy, like Army versus Navy, the football school that plays football against the Army. She's like, yeah. And she's like, the only other person I think that's ever done it in the history of the UFC was Brian Stan. So I said, oh shit, I've got the female Brian Stan in front of me. So she wrestles, she boxes for the Marines. She's pretty. She's can fight at 135, 145, or 55. She's been training in jiu-jitsu and she's only 26 years old. So I'm super, super excited for her.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Also, you got a great staff of people working with, of course, your brother Abe, who I know very well, and another agent under your wing, Lou DeBono, who's a phenomenal guy. I know Lou very well. So I know he's also working on this deal, but it looks like August, we're going to see Derek Lewis get his rematch with Francis Ngannou. That's going to be a big fight. How excited are you to see that one again and get Derek in another title fight? Derek's one of the most fun guys in this entire industry, but he's also, a guy who flicks you with his finger and you go flying across the room. So that's going to be a fun one. August is going to be a big month for FRM, isn't it?
Oh, dude, it's really, every month is a big month. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy. And then listen, you got to think that, let me see what we're in June. Yeah. Darius's deal should hopefully close by July. You know what I mean? So that's going to be a big, that's going to be big news all across the football world when that one closes. Derek's looking obviously for a title fight. You know what I mean? The Dana's already confirmed that he's going to get it. I'm excited for that one too. You know, Damon, listen, guys like Derek are the guys that deserve everything that they get. You know what I'm saying? And although the first fight was really, it's funny. You got two of the best punchers in the game. Neither one of them wanted to really throw a punch because you almost felt they were both afraid of the other's punching power. Derek actually had a really bad back going into that fight, and he was nursing it the whole time, and he really almost pulled out of that fight in the first place. So, not making excuses or anything like that. It was a bad fight, but I think both of them have improved so drastically. You know what I mean? That the fight we're going to see this. I'll be surprised. I'll be shocked again if we get out of the first round in that fight.
Yeah, that's going to be tremendous, man. Derek looks so good. And I know I've talked to Derek about his back problems, man. He doesn't like talking about it because he doesn't want to sound like he's making excuses. But
yeah,
man, he told me some horror stories about how bad it got, like how much it hurt him in training and things. And I'm like, geez, like the fact that he made it to some of those fights, much less won them, is kind of crazy to me.
And it goes to show you the type of guy he is. That doesn't really talk much. Doesn't when he says something, it's usually to be funny and make people laugh. He entertains people in his own sense of humor. He's the best, man. I got to tell you, he's one of my favorite people to be around. I couldn't be happier for Lou. Damon, Lou's my first employee. He's been with me all this time. You know what I mean? And he made partner in our company, and he's Abe and I's partner, and he has an opportunity, hopefully with Derek, to get his very first UFC champ. I don't think people understand how hard it is to get a champion. I've represented multiple champions at a time, a few times in my career. And no one in my office has gotten a UFC champion but me. So you can only imagine the amount of shit that I talk to everybody, including Abraham. Although Abraham's got the only BMF, and I don't know that there'll ever be another one. So Abraham I don't know if he gets a notch above or not, but at least his claim to fame is the BMF. But Lou, if Lou gets, I told Lou this one day, I said, Lou, if you ever get the heavyweight championship with Derek Lewis, that might be the greatest accomplishment anyone's ever gotten in our office. Now, look, representing John Jones all those years and Demetrius Johnson is obviously a huge accolade, because when you represent the GOAT and then the second GOAT or the number 2 pound for pound or whatever it is, you know what I mean? Those are big feathers in your cap, right? But when you get the heavyweight champion of the world, you represent the baddest man on the planet. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that takes Abe a notch down, or if that's Abe first, Lou second, and I'm third. I don't know if all the champions I've represented makes me first, and then I have no idea. But you can only imagine the atmosphere we have. We talk a lot of shit, but I'm excited for him more than anyone too, because if Derek fights Francis and he wins, which if they fight, I think Derek wins. I'd be happy for Lou, because it's been a grind for him, and he's done a hell of a job. And Lauren Murphy's another one that he represents, and Lauren Murphy's got a fight coming up real soon, and if she wins that one, she'll probably get a title shot next. And you know what I mean? He might mess around and have 2 champions before the year's over with, and me and Abe sitting there twiddling our thumbs. You know what I mean? So you know how that goes. So,
yeah. Last thing before I get you out of here, obviously I know Abe's played a big part in this as well. I was actually just talking to Dave Feldman earlier today from BKFC. Paige Van Zandt has her next fight booked, but she's also going to be doing commentary at the first ever Gamebred FC card. Listen, you work a lot of deals for your clients in terms of fighting, in terms of getting them the right fights. And we know Paige has got her next fight booked and all that kind of stuff. But as a guy who works with your clients on other things, endorsements, things they want to do outside the sport, obviously with Jorge, he also did like a reality show, things like that. How excited are you to see, him branch out and have his own promotion now starting, in June? Unique format. I know Dave Feldman, they're going to put it on the BKFC app, which is awesome. Uh-huh. He was very excited about that partnership. I got to say, I don't know, you tell me, you worked a lot of big deals for fights, but it's exciting to see a guy like George, kind of build his own thing a little bit.
Yeah. It's funny. So listen, Damon, the funny thing about this is that, I went to Dave Feldman's show. I watched bare knuckle boxing live. And to anybody who's listening out there, if you've never watched it live, it might be the greatest thing you ever see in your life. Until, of course, Gamebred FC comes around. I'm watching this. And I'm saying to myself, holy shit, what am I watching right now? And why do I like it? Blood everywhere, cuts, this, that, the other. But these people are really legitimately going at it, toe to toe, just straight boxing, And I'm like, wait a minute, dude. What is this? And I sat there and I said to myself, if you made this bare knuckle MMA this would be the greatest thing on earth. Grapplers will be able to grapple. Strikers will be able to strike. You might get some broken hands. You might get some cuts, but you're going to have nonstop action. And, buddy, I went to Georgie, and Georgie's like, oh, yeah, okay, cool. And then one day he came back, and he was like, you know what, bro? I thought about it. You're absolutely right. And think about this too, Damon, right? What's more authentic than George Masvidal, the only fighter in the UFC to come out of the backyard, or one of maybe 2 or 3, right? But the main one, the most famous one to ever come out of the backyard besides Kimbo Slice, goes and opens up basically the same exact thing, but with the unified rules and in a cage. And that's kind of what he went. And it's just so authentic to me that I think, and we've gotten such an amazing response to it. I feel like every reporter we've spoken to, every fighter that's out there that doesn't have a fight book somewhere is asking to be in this thing. And we've got some, cool. And listen, and you got to think, right? We've got some cool stuff planned. Paige Van Zandt being a commentator, I think that was a big deal, right? Frank Mir is going to be the incumbent. He's going to always be one of our commentators. So him and Paige, and then Sean Wheelock doing the rules and coming in and doing the interjection. Dan Lambert is always going to be a guest. You know what I mean? Commentator. I kind of looked at everything that everybody else did good and took a piece of it ourselves and try to make it work a certain way. You follow what I'm trying to say? Georgie's promotion is the only regional promotion besides the UFC that has a. Hold on, I lost you there.
Yep, I've got you.
That's the only one it's the only promotion that has a what do you call it? A partnership already with a clothing brand with one of the biggest stars out there the reggaeton artist, right? And so when you sit down and look at like all the moves we've made and then the sponsorships we've been able to get, and we'll start to announce those soon. And then you go get a main event the way we got it and all this other stuff. It just becomes like it's becoming a bigger thing than what we even thought it would be. And so we're excited about that. I'm super excited about that. But Damon, let me just say this to you. You said something interesting. You said, Mark, you've done a lot of deals and blah, blah, blah. And it's true, I have. More than anybody else in the business. There's only one other person I think that's done one thing that maybe I haven't done, right? And that would have been Conor fighting in a boxing match, crossed over, you know what I mean, and did something like that. But that's Conor, right? Outside of that, do you know how many of my clients own businesses on deals that we've helped them create, and we actually have supported them in the marketing aspect, just getting the influencers together and doing the promotions for them, and they are making a lot of money outside of fighting or playing football. And that's kind of where my business is headed. I'm no longer looking to just do a sponsorship. That's not kind of what I want to do. I know every fighter wants that. They don't really understand what they want sometimes. I always explain to them, you want to go get this 30% code and sell, shampoos and this and that and the other. Outside of doing that, how about you own the entire company and you get 30% of everything that everybody else sits there and sells? And we've put some stuff together. We've had a concept that we've been working on, and it's worked out great. And I think that's kind of where our company is headed to. You know what I mean? We just, listen, you look at some of the other companies out there, they're finally getting T-shirts with their names on it. I've been doing it for 10 years. You follow me? You got managers out there yapping after every single fight. I did that 10 years ago. You know what I mean? You got managers that get 1 or 2 champions and they think they're the best. I've been the best for 10 years. So I'm just going to keep on setting the standard and keep moving forward with what we do. You follow me? And so now it's no longer about a sponsorship. Yes, we'll get sponsors. Yes, I'll always get the big fights. Yes, I'll negotiate the big contracts in the NFL. But more importantly than all that, now it's more about how can I set you up for the rest of your life? What are you into? And how do I go develop a business for you to make that happen? We just acquired another company, a media company, right, to help people with their social media branding. Everything's going social media wise. That announcement's coming soon. All right, it was a multi-million-dollar deal where I had literally bought another company, right, to be able to come in and do stuff for our company, our influencers, all that. So we just have a completely different business set up. And, like I said, continue to lead the way. That's just kind of what I do. It's what I'm going to always do. Since the minute I got into MMA, I don't think I've ever let up on that. And that's really where we're at.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, congrats on that. I'm looking forward to the debut of Gamebred FC. Obviously, congrats on getting the deal done with T Wood fighting Jake Paul in August. Look forward to Derek Lewis. We could stay on for another hour and just go down the roster, but I'll let you go. Malki, thank you so much for doing this. I'm sure we'll chat again before Tyron's fight in August, but thank you for doing this. Congrats again on getting the deal done. And man, look forward to everything FRM has coming up soon this summer.
I appreciate you, Damon. Thank you so much always for supporting, bro, and for giving us the platform and for me and my guys to speak and, be on there and to get some stuff out there. I appreciate that. And you know what I mean? Look forward to it, man. So anything you need from me, you can always count on me.